Hi guys, this is Eleanor. Welcome back to Revolution. We're direct from Dubai with Bryn and Ming for this Girl Power. Wei was supposed to be attending this talk. I guess he gets scared of being stuck in between three women to kind of respond to his questions, but I think we're going to handle it on our own. The whole idea of this talk, ladies, was to not only put ourselves as the feminist of the industry, because I don't really like that word, but the way you've approached watchmaking, the way you approach watchmaking is very different from the way I approach it. And we thought it was interesting to discuss to the audience and also have them react and probably and potentially have them send us some ideas or topics or areas of expertise that they would want us to cover. So first thing first, Bryn Wallner, you founded Dimepiece. What was your original idea when you decided to dive into it?
Yeah, I learned about watches when I was working at Sotheby's, and something that was really glaring was the lack of women in the narrative. And I was just shocked by that because they're so cool and they have so much history, and women do wear watches, but in reading the history about them, they're rarely ever mentioned as central parts of the story. And I kind of took a mental note of that, and Sotheby's let me go the day New York shut down for the pandemic. I didn't have a job. Didn't know what to do, but I had the luxury of time to kind of reevaluate, and I thought there's something there for women in watches. I started an Instagram account, super simple, but I just wanted to share my enthusiasm, my newfound passion for this thing that I loved and something that I now had to aspire to.
And you, Ming, you write for the most prestigious title there is. I mean, not necessarily only watch outlets, but if I just mention the New York Times, the Financial Times, or Vanity Fair, those are basically once in a lifetime. Journalists would wish they could write for just one of them. How do you manage to get these three?
Yeah, I think I've always been interested in story, whether I'm covering a business story or a trend story or a profile on a creative director or a CEO. I think these are generalist papers. I'm not a super geeky watch geek. I don't deep dive into a movement, and maybe that's why I've managed to write for publications like the FT and the New York Times. It's a very generalist audience. They're interested in a lot of things. They read, global news as much as they'll read about what's happening in Dubai Watch Week. So I guess there's that thread.
What I particularly find interesting in this talk is, yes, we're the Charlie's Angel. You're the brunette, you're the blonde, I'm the redhead. But jokes aside, you write like solid, in-depth journalism like many investigative reporter would do. You have this approach where you were basically born and raised in the world of social media, where you took it like, yeah, I don't have a job, I'm just going to create an account. And if I can talk about myself, I joined obviously Revolution after knowing Wei for 15 years, but I'm in between where I'm the new guard, where I want to speak like freely in a very lifestyle approach and not so much a geeky and nerd way like many watch expert write as if they had a watch expert audience. And being born and raised in this industry, it was really hard for me to share that passion with a very simple approach, because I would speak about things very casually. People were like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And obviously writing is a big thing, but then with what happened in videos, people are much rather like watch a 2-minute video rather than read a 2-minute video, unless it's the New York Times publishing an article, unless it's you creating this cool story in Paris where you speak French and you have a croissant, which is to some extent completely unrelated to watches, but people love it. So finding the right tone is also very hard because we're in an industry dominated by men. And again, I don't want to fall into the whole feminist speech, but how do you deal with this? Long question. How much time do you have?
Well, when I write, I'm a journalist as well, and I write for a lot of lifestyle outlets like Harper's Bazaar and GQ, and I approach that writing as if nobody knows what I'm talking about. And I'm really careful and patient with the audience because odds are nobody knows what a tourbillon is outside of this very, very niche industry. So taking the time and not presuming that everybody knows everything, because you never know who you'll kind of capture.
Yeah, I think for me it's not a gender thing. I think it's a human thing. It's human to human. I cover human stories in a way. I think my favorite stories are, like I said, interviewing a CEO, interviewing a creative director, talking to collectors is my greatest passion. I think I don't meet enough collectors because in the industry you don't always see them, and I don't have the watches to be at the table. But so I'll be honest, I think in the last few years the industry has been very welcoming to women and women reporters, especially. I mean, all of us are a success story in our mediums. So I think it's really just a human thing to connect with people.
And aren't you ever frustrated about things that is happening in this industry?
Well, I think we're trying to define what a watch means to a woman, and there are lots of different answers. And it's not just women, it's humans. And there's just so much debate over the semantics, over what do we call this? Is it a lady's watch? Is it a man's watch? And just that whole
Is it
topic.
unisex from now on?
Unisex, to me, that the label is very tiring, whether it's labeling it unisex or labeling it for women. And I think that it just all comes down to the intention of the design, and when these watchmakers are making a watch, who are they making it for? And that really trickles down into who wears it. And so just finding the products that speak to me and speak to a wider audience of women, because I think a lot of women do feel excluded just by the sheer design of certain objects. I get frustrated by the labels, and I think we need to kind of go away from that and go back to the intention of the product.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't know if frustration is the word, but I do like to see more development of women in top roles and influential roles. I think we're going to have more CEOs. The biggest one is probably AP, which is big news. But also, we've just all been asked to join the FHH, which is
and the Gold Council.
This,
yeah, it's true.
More women in the media. There's always been a lot of, there's been women in the media, but representing different voices. And women at the top. I think the GPHG, you were one of the women on the GPHG recently. I would love to see more women on the GPHG. It's been very dominated by men.
I agree with what you say, but on the other hand, it's not because, yes, I agree with the whole thing where we need more women, but what if there's not enough smart women, expert in their domain, who know what they're talking about, and they're not just there because they're women. And it's the thing that I generally find frustrating to some extent, because when I see those it's lacking women. Yeah, but maybe if it's lacking women because not a lot of them actually deserve to be at that table. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. It's just that with the whole unisex, gender neutral thing, and it's not the whole debate here, but there's this amalgam being made between influencers and bloggers, because bloggers were men and influencers were women in the very beginning. And then journalists, most of them were experts, and there were not a lot of women where you would give them a voice. And then when you speak to the brands, and I'm sure you've had that discussion many times, they have a hard time comparting print media from digital media, from social media, from influence, and from strategies, from content creator. And all of a sudden it's a bundle of people where nobody knows where to go, what to do, who's naming what. And as you were mentioning the FHH and the Cultural Council, the reason why they called us 3 in addition to newly members, it's because they wanted to expand a younger audience, at least younger people inside the foundation and the Cultural Council, but also with more dynamic, a more feminine and female approach. But that being said, I still don't understand exactly what they're doing. And I feel that it's been the general mood from 20 years of what is the FHH doing? The watch industry, the Swiss industry, where things are very slow. They don't want things to change because they know what they have. They don't know if they leave, what are they going to get.
I think part of that is they are trying to intentionally include more women, and therefore I am included. And I mean, if you look at my experience, I'm shocked that I was even invited on the GPH jury, and I'm so grateful, and it was such an amazing experience to learn from everyone. But I was also here are people who've been in the industry for decades. Their whole life is watchmaking, and I'm so new, and it's I can't
it's
help.
It's the beauty of it.
Yeah, it's but by me being included, it's complicated, but I think that I can't even question that now because I'm here, and I think all of us here talking about watches being at Dubai Watch Week, it's a step in the right direction. And even the fact that we're having this conversation, I think the more people talk about it and the more energy it is, it's kind kind of inevitable as long as we kind of stay focused and remain, I don't know, the community of it. I think we all gotta kind of stick together.
So, if there was one thing that you'd like to see some changes, what would that be?
I don't know. That's hard to say. I was just at a talk, Jean-Claude Biver. I really didn't know what to expect, and it turned into this whole conversation about love. And he was talking about how he kind of uses love to fuel what he does, and when it comes to talking about the younger generation and change, he talks about nature and how the leaves are changing, the climate's changing, the rivers run, and so life is defined by change, so we shouldn't be resistant to that, and instead we should kind of go with that and lean into it. And even myself, I see people younger than me who have started their TikToks, which I'm really bad at, but you can kind of look to the younger generation and not kind of ask yourself, like, I feel like there's so much conversation about how can we change, but nobody knows what that actually looks like. And I think it's about kind of channeling the love and kind of tuning into everybody else to like let that guide us and what we really want for the industry. And I think what we all really want is for more people to be interested in watches and to share the passion. So it's really simple, but I don't know what it looks like.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of openness in the last few years, which I love about watchmaking. I think the whole cross-disciplinary way of watches, whether it's mixed with cars or fashion or style or art, I think that's broadened the audience and the readership of our publications. It's brought in the interest in watchmaking, and I have to give the watchmaking industry credit because they have been quite conservative. They're known to not maybe like change, maybe something to do with time and permanence is maybe the issue, but they've really been open, and I think more of that openness will be really welcomed.
Watches have become a hot topic.
Yeah,
We were mentioning it
watches
for a while. We were talking about art and then cars and then
Yeah.
wine, and now people talk about watches. It used to be a niche topic only about collectors and aficionados, like we all are, but it goes back to what you were saying. It used to be a group of experts talking to another group of experts. Now it has become global.
Yeah.
And I always say, time, everybody knows time, right?
Yeah.
Everybody understands time. Everyone's affected by time, so everyone's going to understand a watch, I think, because we're dominated by time in a way. So, yeah, I think just maybe that's what Jean-Claude Biver was saying about love and openness, which he is so open. He's an example of just the watch industry welcoming.
So we should find the feminine version of Jean-Claude Biver, who's going to be the inspiring woman who will just lead us through. But I mean, there were still some notable women in the industry
Yeah, well,
who
I
did
think
things.
Hind
Hind
I
is one
watched
example,
her.
absolutely.
Is-
Yep.
She's so, and from the beginning, the way that this fair has grown, you're going to have 30,000 plus visitors. It's huge, and it's driven by her, and she's so dynamic and so interested in spreading this transmission of watchmaking knowledge, and she's a woman, and inspires everyone, probably men and women as well.
So girl power, I think we'll have to reconvene in the next few months to see what changed from November 2023 to maybe March 2024.
Ooh, what's gonna happen?
That's a date.
See you there.